because I keep
Perfect.
forgetting to do that.
No problem.
And I don't know how to really share it, but I will figure it out one way or the other.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. We'll throw it on a Dropbox.
Yeah. If you have a Dropbox, can we drop it in Slack? Is that enough capacity to drop this video in Slack?
Yeah. Depending on size, we have an amount. Can you give me share screen capabilities too?
Yes. Why don't I make you co-host? Or it would be co-host. Let me see where I do that. I need to go to participants, I think. Manage participants. And I need to give you share screen too. That's what I need to do. Let me do this. Allow the security to allow you. There you go. You have share screen capabilities now.
Okay, good.
I'm not sure if we need to make you co-host. I'm not sure what it does to the video because I had some difficulty with that. The recording, I mean.
No problem. Okay. Folks are slowly coming online here. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Is everybody there?
Hi, Steven.
Hi there.
I see my screen has me identified by my daughter who keeps pilfering my computer from me and changing the settings on it. Now I can't.
You know how to change the name, right? Yeah, you know how to change. Lydia.
So, Steven, you're going to teach us how to be real slackers.
That's right. And I gotta say, I've never done anything like this before, so we're just gonna go for it. Hopefully, you can get a nice little overview of what it's capable of and how to sort of navigate the interface, and then hopefully, I'm getting folks' emails. Sylvia just emailed and said she needs a link to the.
Here, I can take care of it, Steven.
That'd be great. So I think we should probably get started because Joe's mentioning that we have 45 minutes today. So I'd like to take at least 20 minutes or so to sort of go through some of the functions in Slack, and then leave some time for questions and answers, because I think there'll probably be some questions and everything. So basically, let me start to share my screen because I have some stuff over here I can show you guys. This is okay. So, so first of all, Slack. There's some nice, of course, kind of websites that basically show different sort of tips for how to run Slack. But one thing I think we should probably just establish from the beginning is what's the difference between Slack and email. The major thing with the major difference between emails and Slack is that when you receive emails, you usually can get it just kind of overloaded with information from a lot of different sources. Some of it you don't want. And then what happens to a lot of us is you get in these long email chains where you're essentially sorting through lists and lists and lists of text. Basically, you take those email chains in Slack and turn those into channels. So each channel is essentially a thematic sort of conversation, and within that channel, then you sort of carry on a conversation having to do with whatever's in that channel theme. One thing that's nice about it is also sometimes you're CC'd in on a bunch of different messages and things like that. You don't necessarily have to do that in Slack. You can make sure that only the certain particular people that you'd like to essentially receive notification, which is kind of nice. You can also set up your Slack to filter out certain keywords. So whenever a message comes up in Slack that has a keyword that you're interested in, you'll be notified. So there's a bunch of different ways to sort of filter messages and everything like this. I think one of the things with Slack that's a bit daunting to the beginner is, especially joining a new workspace, you'll see an entire list of channels, an abundance of messages, and you get a bit overwhelmed. This is kind of like, for me anyway, when you don't check your email for like a week and you come back to it and you have like 100 million messages. It's essentially the same thing. And so as a beginner, essentially don't get intimidated by the fact that there could be a lot of information coming at you all at once. So I'm going to switch over to my another screen here then. Here we go. So you should be able to see now my Slack program here. There's a couple ways to run Slack, I should mention. One of them is to run it in your browser. And if you run it in your browser, then you're going to be dealing with tabs and stuff like this sometimes. My recommendation is to download the freestanding app, the application that you can download for Windows or Mac. It's quite nice. But I'll try to kind of bring you through some of the basic navigation of the interface here. So if you take a look, I think you can see my cursor, correct? I would hope so. Can you see my cursor moving around?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes, you can. Okay. So over here on the left, you can see all these little icons. These are different Slack workspaces. So I've been using Slack for a few years now, and I have a Slack for a project I'm running. This is the SSCP Slack. There's a couple other projects over here that you can go and navigate to. For many of you, you'll only have one little figure over here on the left. But then essentially, this central left side column will have a number of different options. Basically, you've got two different sections. You've got the message section that's below here, and you can see I have a list of channels and also have a list of direct messages. And essentially, those are the two main kind of sections in which you're going to be communicating with other people. In the new version of Slack, the program anyway, there's this sort of upper area here. And this is basically to help you navigate through and find different things, whether they be in threads or different ways you can even mention, etc. And so what's the difference, first of all, because we do mainly all your work in channels and in direct messages. The difference between channels and direct messages is simply that channels can have many, many people join them and join them freely if they're, for example, a public channel. And direct messages are one-on-one or 1 and 3 or a group of 3 or 4. You can specify how many people you'd like to have a private conversation with. So you can see here I've got a bunch of different things, private conversations that I've been having with folks. One other thing that you can notice here in the direct messages is certain people have a green circle by their name. That means they're online. They are connected to Slack at this moment. So if I wanted to, for example, I could click on one of these folks over here and have an immediate conversation with them. If, of course, they're looking at the screen at that moment. So that's kind of nice, and that's another difference between email and Slack. But I want to give you guys here a little bit of a challenge. I'm going to show you here, and you don't do this very often, but how to create a new channel. Basically, to access any channels, you have to go to the channel section here. And I'm going to create a new channel, and I'm going to see if you guys can find it and join it effectively, okay? So essentially, I would click this little plus button, and you can see here I can either browse existing or I can create a new channel. I'm just going to show you how to create a new one in case this ever comes up for anybody. I'm just going to call this channel Slack Training. And I'm going to describe it as a channel for talking about how to use Slack. So that's the description. It has a name, and now I have the option to make this channel private if I wanted to. And if it's a private channel, then I have to invite people to join that channel. But I don't want it to be private. I want it to be a public channel. And so I'm going to create it. And now it's asking me to add people. And actually, I'm going to skip this for now because I want to see if you guys can find me. So if you take a look now at this brand new screen, I have on the left, I can find alphabetically Slack training. It's over here. And look at some people already going too fast. There's Joe already joined my Slack. So there it is over here on the left. And on the right here, you can see it's just a fresh, brand new channel. No one is in here. You can see up on the upper part of the screen here, there's a list of essentially folks who are joining this channel. And Christoph and Joseph have already found this channel. What I'd like you all to do then is go up to the channels, hit the plus button, and hit Browse Channels. And if you click on the Browse Channels, you'll see a list. And it says here there's 42 channels within our workspace on various topics. If you can go, of course, and scroll through and find Slack training, that would be right here. Or you can use the search bar to just put in Slack. I think it was underscore. Hit it, and then of course it'll come up. I see folks are joining one at a time. I've got 9 people in the channel. Can you guys all
Transmissions cut out about 4 times. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Thomas.
Thomas, you're breaking up.
Connected.
The transmission from Steve is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm catching Steve fine, Thomas. I think the problem may be at your receiving end.
Okay. Let's see if we're at 11 folks. If everybody can join this Slack training channel, that'd be great. Can you find it? Are people having trouble?
It may be useful to stop for a second, Stephen, and see if folks have specific questions on being able to follow through on the challenge that you've set them.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm back, but I cut out about 4 or 5 times already. I don't know, maybe we should do this without videos because we're looking at the screen anyway.
If that helps, sure.
Yeah.
If people can drop their videos, that'd be great.
Your transmission's gotten better, Thomas. I don't know if that helps at your end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm seeing 13 people that have joined the Slack training channel. If you can go again to the channel section here on the left-hand side, and you should see a little plus mark. Click on that, and then click Browse Channels, and then search for, and you can just put Slack in there and hit Return, or you can find it in the list here in alphabetical order. I see 14 people. Folks are still kind of moving through. Maybe some of you are sort of listening to this in the background. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, we are in this channel. Now, what can you do when you're in a channel? You can do all kinds of things, but I think what I should try to point out first is some details. Every channel has the same sort of setup. So at the top, you can see a member list. You can click on this little icon here with the person and then a number of people, and you can see a list of people here that are on the right-hand side. Then, of course, I can click on certain people and say, who is this person, Christoph? And you'll get a profile picture for those of you who have put a profile picture in there. And what else is kind of nice is you can see their local time. So essentially, if we're all over the planet here, connecting at different time zones, it does help sometimes to know what time it is for certain people. I can also launch a direct message to that person, or I could call them if I wanted to. You can run calls like a Skype type situation through Slack as well. That's probably it. There's sort of a number of different details that you can access through this function here, but mainly once you're in a channel, you can do a number of things. Number one, send messages. So for example, I can say, hi everyone, hit enter, everybody can see it, right? Now, if I asked a question, for example,
Actually, Stephen, can I ask a question about that?
sure.
Is there a way, so when you're composing composing text, is there a way of getting a screen so that you're not just looking at this little messaging bar? So you have a, okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the functions now that you can do with this thing up over here at the left called drafts. You can start a new message draft, and within it, you essentially can get these little. You get the screen like this, and you can start to type and everything like this in here, and save it for later. That's one way to do it. But if you want to send like large chunks of text, the other thing you can do is if you click on shortening or click on the, sorry, shortcuts, this little kind of lightning symbol, you can do what's called a post. You can create a post. And creating a post will bring up another window in which it's essentially like a little word sort of word processing document.
Okay, Stephen, we have a question.
Sure.
And this actually takes us a couple steps back by Clay De Silva, who says, do I need to be part of the Future Earth Con workspace? The channel does not show up when he searches for it.
Yeah, that we're in the SSCP CAN workspace. Let me just see who Clay. Oh, sorry, I don't want to invite you. I want to. I just want to see who's in this members. Clay, are you?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. So I don't think you've joined yet. So
yeah.
Actually, I'll send you an invitation. So here's one way to invite folks to a workspace. So you can click up on the upper left-hand side, click invite people to the CAN. And there's a couple different ways you can just send them a direct message, or and I like to use this invite link. And now this invite link, I've made it so it never expires. The old one that I'd sent around had already expired for a few people. So this one, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to hit done, and then you'll just post it over here in the chat box in Zoom. Can you see that now, Clay?
Yes. Let's see.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll work for me because I have a strange setup going on here. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so I'm communicating with with you all through my tablet because that's the only functional webcam I have at the moment.
Okay.
And I have Slack downloaded on my laptop. So I won't be able to log in clicking on that link from here. I wonder if I can copy it and send it to myself. Yeah.
Yeah, that might work. Or yeah.
Is it okay if my email is different from the one that you have? Because I do have Slack downloaded through a Gmail account. I think that's what I've signed up to most things for. Does it matter what the email is?
It does.
Okay.
So, for example, I had two emails, and I was signed into one Slack workspace with one email, and then on another with another email, and I couldn't combine the two. So make sure you, that you keep one email for that kind of stuff.
That means I'll need to set one up, I think, with my Waterloo email. That is what I'm using for this. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can do that in the background. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good questions. So getting back to some of the stuff you can do in a channel. If you take a look here, I asked a question to everyone, what did everyone eat last? And you can see a little reply down here by somebody. It's Marin, and she was replying to me in a thread. So this is another way to sort of keep the conversation a little bit cleaner in the channel. Sometimes you can have these lists that you can go through that's not as sort of conducive to communication than these threads are. So if you take a look here, I can click on her reply, and the thread will appear over here on the right. And Marin had some vegetarian dumplings, sounds terrific. And you can see some people are responding in other ways. Max has responded with a burrito icon, so perhaps he had a burrito, right? Kate had muesli, blah, blah, blah. So threads are really key to to sort of keeping the conversation tight. So it's nice to work in threads sometimes like this. That's another kind of nice feature. Let me think about what else you can do. So send messages, talk in threads, reactions. I think the reactions are kind of fun where you can react with a icon of some kind. You can search for these emojis. There are all kinds of new emojis people can do. Joe,
Steven,
yeah, go ahead.
I have
Sylvia.
a question.
Yeah.
My Slack, it starts with that my Slack looks totally different than your Slack.
Okay.
And the things appear differently. And I started a private chat with Doris, and took me a while to find out how to go back from these frames. So am I simply in a wrong version because I have not downloaded it, or what might be the difference?
Are you running it through your web browser?
Yes.
So yeah, if you're running it through your web browser, it'll probably look a little bit different. And,
okay, so then I have to download it, and then my problems will be solved.
That would be great. That would
Okay.
be excellent.
Okay, thank you.
I think so, but yeah, I can help you out a little bit later, Sylvia. That's not a big deal. Yeah.
Just one clarification, Stephen. I mean, it's not obvious, or at least it wasn't obvious for me, where on the Slack website you find the app version to be able to download. And the only way I was able to do it was to use that link that you sent to me yesterday. Is that a more systemic issue, or is it just my own inability to have found the link on the website?
Yeah, I mean, I can show you. Oops, I think you can see my browser now. So I just put Slack download in Google, and then here's Slack for Windows.
Maybe you could just click on that and post the link into the chat box, because I spent, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes canvassing about on the Slack website to try to find how you downloaded it, and I couldn't find it.
I'm glad to hear that I didn't ask a totally stupid question.
No, Sylvia, you never ask stupid questions.
It's okay.
There are no stupid questions.
Right. The other thing that is can be nice at times. Sometimes it can be a bit annoying, but you can get it on. You can have Slack on your phone as well, or on your iPad, or wherever. I mean, it's on mobile apps as well. So I kind of use it just to keep track of what's going on. But you can download it for Android and for Mac OS, or iOS, I should say, as well. Okay. Now let me see, I'm going to give a challenge here to some other folks now. Joseph, Maury, Julia, and Clay, you have all posted in the channel here, and that's great. I want to show you something now. Let me see if let's say I had.
You're sharing, Stephen, the Google search screen. That's what we see.
Sorry. Let me get that back.
Steve says he had rice.
I did. I can't. I'm kind of. I had rice.
You actually eat rice in Japan?
Unbelievable, right? So look I put this message here, and you know what? It's probably better for this to be in the thread. If I realize that now, I'm going to click on my message, and there's all these little options that show up here. I'm going to say more actions on the right, those three little dots, and I'm going to delete it. And then you can delete a message. And instead, I'm going to go up to the message that I'd already asked everyone to write in the thread, and I'm going to rewrite my message in the thread. Yeah, I ate rice. So you can delete messages. You can edit messages. So for example, if I click on this again, I'm going to edit. I ate rice and what did we have? And soup. Sounds just really appetizing, doesn't it, everybody? Yeah, it was kind of one of those, this is like the lockdown supper routine where you kind of don't have enough energy. So anyway, you can edit your messages. You can delete them. If you guys can try that, edit it or delete it or move it around, try those kinds of things. It's kind of interesting to do. Yes. Now, another thing you can do with a message, say, I want to share this message. What did everybody eat last night? I want to share it. I can click on this button here to share, and I want to share it with my good friend Christoph. And I would say, look at what everyone is eating. And you can share it, and it'll be sent to Christoph. So there's all these kinds of ways in which you can communicate through just these little buttons here that are available, okay? Another thing that's kind of nice, especially when you have a big Slack channel and there's a lot of messages, there could be more important messages that you need people to notice and recognize. And those messages you can pin. If you click on more actions over here, you can see a number of different options. One of them is pin to channel. And once I pin this to the channel, it'll turn a little bit yellow here like this. And then if somebody is new to a channel or wants to sort of refresh themselves, they can click on the details part at the top of the channel, and there'll be a list of pinned items along with members and everything else. And you can see the important sort of items. And I can show you, for example, in the 3.5 working group channel, there's all this kind of discussion happening. If I click up here on the details and I go to pinned items, you can see there's 5 different pinned items that you can sort of look through and check out. So that's kind of nice. Let's see, there's a couple of questions over here. Can you rewrite, delete, but not move things to a thread? Yeah, you can do anything. Kate, that's a good question. You don't have to do anything. The thread is just an option. You can delete messages. You can edit them anytime. So it's kind of nice, actually, to do that. Let me see what else you can do in a channel. You can, of course, share links and files. As you see right now, Max has essentially shared some links to download the apps. You can do that, of course. You can also add a file. So if you clicked on a button over here on the bottom right, you can attach a file. I can show you guys in another channel. Maybe there's some files in here. Actually, this is a Google. It's a Google Docs, but it looks like a file, and it's in a Google Drive. But here, for example, is a link to a Google Doc that's right here for everybody to find. So what's nice is you can use Slack as essentially a database, if you will, for just sort of collecting files on certain topics. Another option you can do here, so say there's a number of us talking in this channel, and I want to make sure that someone is listening to my message or receives my message. For example, I'm going to write a message to Sylvia about her clock. So I will put I will put an @ mark. And if you see here, if I put an @ mark, you can mention someone, okay? And I'm going to put Sylvia, and there she is. There's two Sylvias. I need to be careful. And her name will show up in blue here. And then I'll say, was that your clock? And she will receive a notification or a ping on the left-hand side of her screen here. You should see it in red. So of course, look at that. So Christoph, for example, could you ping me somehow so you can see these red little things show up in the channel? Let's say I'm over here and I'm looking at some other information, and oh my goodness, look over here in the Slack training channel. There's a red little mark with a 1 in it. I click on there and I can see my name. Christoph has said, hey there, right? So you can sort of mention people this way, and you can get people involved in a conversation, right? So for example, if I go into this thread here, I can say, I want to say, hey, Clay, do you take sugar and milk with your coffee? And what about Kate? You know, then they'll get pinged, they'll get a message, and they can respond, right? So it's one way to sort of make sure people that you want to be involved in a conversation get involved in that conversation in different ways. Nope, he takes it black. Okay, great.
May I have a
No,
Go
ahead,
for it.
Sylvia.
Questions, go for it.
yeah, a practical question to the other trainees. How do you manage to see your screen and to follow what Steve is describing and Steven's in parallel? So is it just me that has to a small screen, or how do you manage this?
You need to move back and forth between different browser windows. So you need to have Steven's Zoom screen open as you do,
Yeah.
and then also have your own Slack page operating.
Yeah, so it's I'm not the only one who's switching between the things and sometimes not fast enough. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Maren says it might, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If you have a monitor, you can have that on one side and.
Yeah, sharing the screen, yes. Mhm.
Something like this, yeah.
No, not sharing, I'm having, dividing.
Well, it takes a little bit of finagling when you have a smaller screen, but that's okay.
So Stephen, I had maybe we can take us move in a slightly different direction, go back a step.
Yep.
Maybe you could explain also to everyone how you sign up for different channels. Because I know on my screen, partly to sort of manage the flow, I'm only signed on to 2 post-COVID channels, but I might want to, you know, see what's going on in one of the other groups. I think when we originally started setting this up, the idea was that people would be primarily devoted to one work group. But I think one of the things that Slack facilitates is that you can, you know, be a member of one working group, so to speak, but a sort of an eavesdropper on other working groups, see what's going on there.
Sure. So can you see my screen now? We'll just go up to the little channel bar here and the little plus symbol. Can you see that, Mari?
Yep.
And then you can click on Browse Channels.
And so when you click on Browse Channels, you would see everything that's in the SSCP CAN workspace.
Yes, and there's 42 channels in here. Some of them are old. Some of them you can see only have 9 members. There's certain channels when you sign on to a workspace that are essentially kind of your default channels to join. For example, announcements. I think introductions is another one. There might be some other ones that are new. You know, papers and publications. You can see there's a lot of these different channels for different sort of functions. So introductions, for example, if you go to that one, people are introducing themselves. They say, I'm from here, I do this. Papers and publications, this one is a nice one for announcing papers that you may have just published, or actually RIA, for example, today posted a couple call for papers that were out through the CAN that just helped to kind of keep them all in one place.
So just as a word for
yeah.
For others who are just sort of coming into the workspace, is that you know, because we tried to use this as on a CAN-wide basis some time ago, there's a lot of what would probably be for many people extraneous stuff. So I guess the challenge that I encounter is that there's so many different channels, and that many of them are not really sort of relevant for current purposes, and that folks can just kind of ignore those.
Right. So for example, let's see, there's a, let's say there's a channel here called Asia. We set this up a long time ago. I'm not interested in this channel anymore. Or perhaps this channel is giving me too much information. I don't need it. You can leave the channel. If you go to the top of any channel, you can details, and then you can click on this more button. And it'll say at the bottom here, leave hashtag Asia. And that will allow you to just leave that channel. So then when I click on that, it's no longer in my list. Another thing that you could do.
You can come back to it though by going back to that original search screen and finding it and rejoining though, right? Without any, and people don't need any permissions to join. Once you're in the workspace, you don't need any permission to join an unlocked channel, right?
Exactly. A public channel is available. Yep.
Leaving means leaving the channel. How to just close the channel and to come back to the previous page.
You just click on the other channels on the side.
Yeah, you just click on different channels over here on the left to move to different channels. Yeah. So for example, so like introduction is here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, makes sense. The other thing that's kind of nice then to sort of keep track of things. For example, there's certain channels that I think I want to pay more attention to. For example, I'm facilitating 3.5. So this one, if I go up to the very top, I can star it. You can star certain channels, okay? And if I star it, you'll see that it shows up at the top of my list of channels. So if you want to sort of say, okay, these are the ones I really need to pay attention to. The rest of them, you know, this kind of stuff. There's all kinds of conversations happening, but these are the ones that I really want to pay attention to. So you can do that kind of thing as well. I want to look over here because I see some questions. Kate has a good question about different workspaces. Yeah, so to get all of your Slacks coming through the same, your workspaces to be kind of all in the same area, first of all, I recommend you getting the app, the application to do it. And then you need to make sure that you're joined through, you're signed into Slack with the correct email address. And hopefully you have one email address that all of your workspaces are under. And then you can have them as like a little collection over here on the left. So for example, this is a whole nother project over here, the Feast project, our Slack. We don't have as many members, but we use it often. We've got a bunch of different channels. There's another project on anticipatory governance. This Slack has over 300, 400 members. I mean, it's booming in there. So there's constant conversations happening. And so that does help, though, to be able to organize by having all of them on one little bar over there. Yeah, so great. Any other questions?
Ask another question, Stephen, about not the mechanics, but more the sort of social dimensions of using Slack. So particularly going forward in these working groups, we're obviously going to have people of different levels of attention and engagement. How do you manage the problem of, you have a cadre of, say, a dozen people who are, really grinding away, and then, you get somebody who pops up and isn't sort of caught up to speed with everybody else, but, is kind of insistent on being part of that process. How do you sort of manage that in a practical way?
Well, it's one way would be for the facilitator to sort of make sure that they understand who those people are, and this could be a group effort within the channel if there's other people to help, and make sure you tag certain messages with that person's name so that they read the ones that are the most important to them, to sort of catch up. The other way we do it a lot of times is, say someone's out, in the field for a week and comes back and says, "What did I miss?" The nice thing about Slack is if you're in the same time zone and you're online and you see somebody else online in your Slack channel, you can just ask them, or you can hunt that person down and direct message them and say, what's been going on? What am I missing? What's important? And you can communicate, at that exact moment. So
it sounds like it does require each channel to have kind of a hard-minded facilitator who can sort of intervene when there's somebody who's kind of clogging up the channel with unhelpful contributions.
Sure, something like that.
I'm just being realistic here about how something of this scale with so many people kind of coming and going and having different levels of day-to-day engagement can kind of bog things down.
Right. Yeah, I guess what it takes is just a little bit of trust that folks are just gonna, take the time to maybe read through some of the conversations, but that there's a little bit of self-policing that kind of goes on within it. It is a little, it's really, each of these channels is a mini conversation, and people slide in and out, and sometimes they're active, sometimes they're not. But
there's also, there's there's sort of more formal activity that needs to occur, rather than just kind of casual coming and going chit chat.
Exactly. So one other function, I know I'm cognizant of the time here. Some other kind of advanced moves here that you can do. One thing that I installed, you can install kind of helper apps into Slack, and they kind of help with communicating. One thing you could do, for example, is set up a poll. Polls are really easy, and there's an app called Simple Poll. And essentially, if you take a look here on my screen, I'm going to put /poll, and then I'll hit space, and I'll ask a question. What do you think of Slack? Okay, and then with quotes, and put a space and some other quotes and say it's great. All right, hit enter. You'll get a poll. It'll come out just like this, and folks can sort of click on here. You can get immediate feedback and stuff like this. So that's another way to sort of do that. Yeah. Question.
How did you do that again? Sorry,
Yeah, so I've installed something called Simple Poll, which is a helper app, and you can.
So you have to install that separately.
Yeah, but it's in a section here. If you go to, how the heck do I do that again? Oh yeah, it's in here. It's a section called Apps up here, and you can integrate Google Drive. Somebody was asking about integrating Zoom. What's nice is you can sort of, through your Slack workspace, integrate with other applications as well. And when you do that, then it just sort of helps to keep you in one screen instead of flipping through 100 different tabs. and it's kind of hard to navigate sometimes. So that's one way to do it. I should mention here at the top, these little buttons. You have people. You can search all the different members that are in the Slack. You can see here, a lot of folks have not made a profile. They don't have a photo. I'd encourage people to put a photo on there or something, because it's kind of nice to know who you're talking to and to, you know, connect a name and a face. Okay. My time.
Okay, Steve, is this where we would invite people to be in our group, direct messages and so on? We want to invite people. I only have one person, me, in the direct messages. How do I invite people?
Yeah, so exactly like for channels, it's the same way. You just click on the plus button by direct messages, and then you can find people within there and make your own little private direct message group with members in there.
And this would be members of the group only. It wouldn't be anybody who's ever been on Slack.
It's only people that are in this workspace.
Okay.
So for example, I'm going to make a direct message between you and me. It's just the me and you, and say, hey, and you should see it there on the left.
I see you now, yes.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
kind of nice. It's kind of nice to do that.
But that's it, because somebody had a question about that, and I had the same type of question.
Yep. Any other burning questions?
Just in terms of so there's the free version and then there's the paying a subscription. Am I right?
Yeah.
So as a user of the CANS network one, is it the person who sets it up that needs the subscription, or would all the members? How does that work?
Yeah. So basically, the workspace has a plan, is what my understanding is. And Christoph, correct me if I'm wrong. And basically, a free workspace plan just has some limitations to it. I think one of them is you can only have a maximum of 5 gigabytes worth of files within it. And for example, I think you can only do calls, one-on-one calls. You can't do group calls. So one of the things we do in a paid workspace is we don't need to use Zoom, because we can just use it in Slack, and we can share our screen and do everything that Zoom can do. So those are some of the differences. Are there other differences, Christoph?
That's more or less it, yes.
Yeah.
There is some issues around how much file space, storage space you get for uploading files, depending on which plan you have. But it's the workspace owner that needs to set the plan, not the individual users.
Yes,
so what the anticipatory governance Slack has done is the workspace owner has taken research funding and pays for all of the users on that Slack.
So you can, okay, so how much is it usually per user, or is that?
So Slack counts only active users. So if users are not logging in for a certain time, they are not counted and you don't have to pay for them. How much you have to pay kind of depends on if you're using the normal plan or if you're getting the academic discount. And I think off the top of my head, if you use the academic discount, then it's something like 10 to 15 bucks per year per user.
Yeah.
Are we close to that now that we've kind of grown the workspace in leaps and bounds? Are we going to run up against not being able to continue to use the free space soon, Stephen?
I think what happens will be I don't think you'll never sort of run out. What happens is old messages will just start to fade away. They'll be deleted. Am I right on that, Christoph?
Yes. So you can only see in the free version, you can only see the newest 10,000 messages. Right. Anything older will be saved, but it's not accessible via the search.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously if you want to go back when you're analyzing data or writing a paper and then that information is gone, that might be annoying for you. Yeah.
That might
Okay.
help. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Steve, I really have to go, unfortunately. I apologize for this.
No problem. Yeah, that's
So
okay.
any follow-up?
Any follow-up? Ask questions within this channel. I saw a good question from Doris about some other things. I'll post that in the Slack channel, and I'll answer it here on the Slack training channel here. But yeah, we can
Okay,
do.
so this discussion now is going to move to the Slack channel.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you, Joe.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you so
very
much,
much.
guys.
This was very helpful.
Thanks,
Bye,
Stephen.
everybody.
Yeah. Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Hope that was helpful. Okay, great. Great.
Bye.